What is up, Las Vegas and friends? My name is Jake Gallen, and we are back with the Guest List podcast. I'm excited for this upcoming episode because this guy I've been following on Twitter since I started the podcast, and he was actually one of the first people who reached out to me when I started making my claim to the city that I wanted to do something special. So I have a lot of admiration and appreciation for him, and he has quite a decorated list of accomplishments, but just to sum it up shortly, he's a music composer, producer, and podcaster. And without further ado, David Rosen.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, man.
I appreciate it, brother. I've been tuning out to you, like I said before, I've been tuning out to your music for over the last few days, just because I have such a big appreciation and admiration for the psychedelic, experimental, ambient type music, man.
I love this description, man. I should have you write my new press release.
I'm a big raver kid at heart, so that's kind of what got me into it. And then I transferred over to psytrance music. And
so you're how old are you?
28.
28. Okay, yeah, because you're younger than me, and so you know the differences between all these subgenres of electronic music. For me, I'm just I make electronic music. I don't know. It's so difficult. I've had trouble with that in the past with trying to describe my music because I tend to bring in a lot of different influences and stuff like that, and it's I don't know which genre I am.
I was like you. I actually had no idea when I first went into raving, and then you start learning about 1 to 200 different subgenres. And when you listen to Skrillex, they're like, no, it's bro step, no, it's dub step, no, it's this step and this step. And I'm like, dude, I don't even know. But now I've been to probably 35 to 50 festivals over the last 8 years that I've been going, and you start being able to pick things out. And, I have a bunch of friends who are music producers, so they send me their samples, and I'm like, oh, this makes more sense. But outside of electronic music, I don't really know anything.
Okay. There you go. But funny thing is, I started getting into making music because of electronic music, specifically industrial, but I don't listen to a lot of electronic music anymore.
Really?
I love it. When it's on, I totally dig a lot of different stuff when I hear it. But yeah, as I've gotten older, I've just become a sad, weepy singer-songwriter guy. So,
well, you just get so encapsulated with what you're doing.
Sure.
That's for example, for the podcast, I listen to 20 or 30 different podcasts, but now it's a little bit more refined just because you're just so into your work, and it takes so much more time out of the day that it's hard to be a fan at the end of the day because you're in it for the business now.
Especially now with COVID and everything, because most of my podcasting time was driving to and from work or to and from, hanging out with people or the movies, stuff like that. And now I'm just home all day, and it's it's hard to tune out and just put headphones on, listen to a podcast. It's I could do stuff now.
Yeah, there's this urge that, especially being an entrepreneur, and we'll touch on that later, but it's just when you have the time, you feel like you need to do something. Yeah. And sometimes it affects your mental health a little bit. This is something I was talking about with one of my previous guests, because we're all right now is the time to get everything done, because we don't know where the world is going to morph into coming down the road. And we know, one thing we do know, which is pretty obvious, is that most of the industries are going to become digitized.
Sure.
And we're a little bit of a step ahead of that game, but we need to further distance ourselves.
Absolutely.
So let's start at the beginning, because like I said, you've got quite a list, and I don't want to miss anything out. So just give us a brief description of David Rosen and your projects and how you ended up in Vegas.
Sure. Well, I guess I should start with my family owns a record store here in town called Trax Records. We moved from Pennsylvania to here in Las Vegas in 1998, and we up and moved the whole store with us and everything. And so, of course, I've been around music my whole life because of that, growing up in the store back when it was in Pennsylvania. And I still work there. That's my day job while I continue to, do all this music and podcasting and everything like that. But yeah, the past 20-something years, I've been working mainly on music, composing for film, for commercials, television, things like that, as well as these albums I put out of instrumental music, and produced a bunch of rappers along the way, and just, all kinds of different projects, video games, everything. And over the last 3 years is when podcasting kind of took over my life. First with my buddy Q with our Bird Road podcast, which was kind of the launching ground of our All Points West network. And then it was like I was constantly bringing movies into the discussion. I was like, maybe I should just start my own movie podcast. And next thing you know, I'd started piecing it together, and that kind of became my main thing for a while, and still kind of is, but I'm trying to focus a little more on my music again right now as I continue to work on my new album. But piecing it together and then producing Awesome Movie Year and All Rice No Beans, 2 other podcasts that I do, and maybe we'll talk about it a little more later. But yeah, a lot of different projects all at once, composing music still for films and all that. Not working on any film at the current moment, but I know there's one being shot that I've already been in discussions with about scoring later this year. So always projects in that direction, and then always putting out these new albums.
It's interesting. So you started off with music, and now movies is your biggest focus. Did you transition into movies because you're so involved in the music industry? It's almost just like a byproduct of it, because music videos, and that transfers over to movies. Was that sort of the inspiration, or have you just always been just a movie fan?
Just a movie fan, honestly. And I'm sure that my working in the world of movies, as far as the capacity of composing for them, is part of that love, you know? But yeah, definitely just always been a movie fan. And I'm the kind of person that goes to the theater usually, like I usually go like 100 times a year, roughly.
Oh, it hurts right now.
It's terrible. It is absolutely awful. I just watched Charlie Kaufman's new film, I'm Thinking of Ending Things, which I'm a huge Charlie Kaufman fan. And yes, Netflix produced it. So of course it premiered on Netflix, and thank you, Netflix, for giving Charlie Kaufman some money to make a movie, but that should have been in the theater. It hurts watching these things at home for me.
Is it just because of the nostalgia that comes with going to the movies, or is there actually some sort of production value that's increased at the movie theater?
All of the above, and more than anything for me, it's honestly, and this is partially my own fault, but it's attention span. Like when I'm at the movies, my phone is off. There's, hopefully nobody talking. Normally there's not. People like to say that people are always talking and on their phones. That doesn't happen when I'm at the theater. But you're locked into a story that's taking up your entire vision. And no matter how big your TV at home is, it's not like that. It's like it's this one thing in the middle of a room with your cats walking around, and shit coming in through the windows, and car horns outside, and like you're just not as just entrenched in that movie experience for those 2 hours that you're watching the movie. There's so much more going on, and you have to actively be focusing in on the movie. And when you go to the movies, though, it's like a whole ritual of like you drive there. As you're on your way there, you finish up any thoughts you had or anything like that, and then you sit down in that seat, you grab your popcorn, and you're there, and that's the only thing you're doing.
Yeah, it's unencumbered attention, which is hard to come by. And also, we're not making popcorn, or we don't have slushies or anything like this at home, which naturally comes with it. So
absolutely.
I can see the nostalgia. It's almost like Blockbuster too. It was the same, but
well, when you went to Blockbuster, you looked around for a little bit, you picked a movie, you went home and you watched it. Now you just sit there and just browse through Netflix and don't actually watch anything.
Yeah, you actually spend more time. There's too much selection.
There's too much. It's just all content, and I mean, we could go for an hour on my hatred of the whole content. And of course, that's what we do as podcasters. We're making content, but it's like everything's just been really just brought down to the lowest common denominator, I think, of just content for content's sake.
Yeah, I actually just canceled my Netflix account the other month. I was like, I don't use this. And the only thing I really waited around for was kind of the stand-up specials, because I felt like the series has kind of gravitated more towards like the Zoomers, the younger generation, PG-13, PG. And the movies just literally can never last longer than 30 minutes. Or before I was like, what am I actually watching? What is this?
It's true. The majority of them are just drech. But they're, to give them credit, they gave Charlie Kaufman money. So go Netflix.
So back to the movies with piecing it together. Can you give us an explanation of what is the focus of the show, because movies are such a broad and popularized industry. There's so many different routes that you could go into it.
Yeah, and there's a million movie podcasts, and I really wanted to try to have a fresh take on the genre. And so what I do, I'm piecing it together, is every week I have a different guest with me. Some come back over and over, sometimes brand new guests. And what we do is we talk about a brand new movie in terms of what other movies we think might have inspired them. And so this way we're exploring the themes and the way the movie was made and various comparisons to other movies. And so we're not only reviewing the movie, but we get to talk about all these other ones along throughout the conversation. And this way it opens up the conversation in a different kind of way. And you end up with a list of movies to go see afterwards if you like the movie we're talking about, or ones to avoid also sometimes. But it really opens it up, though, in a way that I think is fresh and people seem to really be enjoying.
Yeah, as long as you're not just a straight movie critic and just bashing everything, because we see that's what a lot of people like to jump on, is just the bad things of it, especially with Game of Thrones the last season. You know, it's not a movie, but everyone wanted it to have the movie qualities and was really bashed on it and jumped on that.
That can get to be a little draining if every episode is just, what was wrong with this, what was wrong. It's fun to listen to something where you're not only celebrating this new movie that you just saw, but celebrating all these other movies along the way that, like, bringing up old favorites, like, oh yeah, I could totally see that comparison and things like that. And I think that's why people have been really connecting with it so far.
What's the selection process like as far as the guests? Are they just friends? Are they something that's pertaining to the movie industry?
Yeah, well, it's a combination of film critics, film fans, filmmakers, just anybody who's got like a real love and appreciation for cinema. Definitely some of the people who have been on are just friends of mine, and sometimes it's friends of friends. And usually when a movie comes out, I will, in just various conversations, whether it be through my, I have a Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces, where we continue talking about all these movies, and then of course Twitter and all that stuff. So usually there's some kind of conversation that happens in the months, leading up to the movie's release, where it's like, oh, I know that this one person is really particularly excited about a movie, so maybe I'll check in with them once it comes out and see if they'd be interested in doing it. Sometimes I see a movie, I already have a mental list of some puzzle pieces, which is what we call the other movies that influenced the movie, and I don't have anybody lined up or anything, so I'll just throw out on Twitter, anybody want to do it, and end up finding really great new people to join me. Just had a couple in a row of just these film critics who are, freelance film critics who write for all these great sites, and got to have them on my show, and it's just awesome.
I love when the branding comes pieced together like a puzzle.
Yeah.
That's specifically what you just did.
Yeah.
So that everything else that's made up of it or compromised of it to build the movie that you're talking about today. That's funny.
I'm a puzzle guy. When I'm not actively doing something, I'm usually just sitting on my couch playing Tetris or Bejeweled or actual jigsaw puzzles. I love puzzles, so I tried to work that into the theme somehow.
Really? What's the biggest physical puzzle that you put together?
God, I haven't done a big one in many, many years, so I don't really remember. But lately, I've been doing like on the iPad kind of apps for it, and
makes it a little easier, I guess.
Yeah, I don't have time to clean things up like that. I already got to keep my house clean from all the animals.
Yeah, like we said, everything goes digital. I actually just got in an argument with one of my friends the other day because he's a traditional book reader, and I'm a Kindle guy.
Sure.
And I talk about, I'm just more towards efficiency and optimization. I was like, how could you not like a Kindle where you could go buy books for $1 off of eBay and read it there and go back and forth, and I'm saving the planet?
You're killing the culture, but I completely agree with you. I'm with you. I'm so lazy about music, especially. Like I have a nice vinyl collection, obviously working at Wax Trax, but maybe like 6 times a year do I put on a record, and I haven't played a single CD in probably a decade. If it's not on Spotify, it doesn't even exist in my mind because I'm just too lazy to go to even a second app.
Spotify has such a stranglehold on,
it really does,
on the music maker industry, and I see a lot of artists lashing out against it.
I've been for years.
What do you see wrong with Spotify?
Well, there's the argument that, it leads to music discovery, which, sure, absolutely. But then once they discover you, if you discover music by David Rosen, like you said, you were listening to some of my music and leading up to this interview. If you sat there and listened around the clock to all my music, I would maybe generate like $1.20. You know what I mean? If we were, out at something and I sold you my CD for even just $5, it's, you know what I mean? It's like, and for an artist to actually like try to make a living off of it and like make it their main focus and not have to focus on, just like a day job or something like that. It's really not something that is nurturing artists in any real way. And then, people can, point to Lady Gaga probably makes, $100,000 a year off of it or something like that. But first of all, we're talking about like billions of plays. Yeah. And second of all, it's Lady Gaga.
Yeah, it's hard. If you think about it, the gain per song for a CD, if they're buying a CD for $10 back then and it's a 20-piece song, it's 50 cents.
Yeah.
50 cents per song. But I've seen people on Spotify, or at least the artists, say that it's like a third of a penny or something like that as far as per play.
I think it's less than that, actually. Yeah, it's ridiculous. And it also has killed digital downloads as well, which, I mean, hey, it's, it's progress. It's what it is. It's where we're headed, and I'm not going to sit here and complain about it. But nobody buys digital downloads anymore, and nobody really buys CDs unless they want to support the artist and just like, oh yeah, I'll buy your CD. But it's really just become. It's turned music, again, content. It's turned it into something that people expect to just be for free behind an app.
Yeah, it's true. Nowadays, like when artists announces a new song or release day, I just wait until that day and I go on to Spotify.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, I have like, I don't know, maybe 10 artists or something like that I will still pre-order every single album they come out with. And I usually buy vinyl because at least it, looks nice. And I know it's not going to sit covered in dust like my CD collection, for everything else, it's just, as soon as it hits Spotify, I can't wait.
Yeah, that makes sense. So like, what the artist traditionally used to use as a source of income was downloads, CDs. Now they have to resort to different streams and kind of differentiate, which what you have done with podcasting.
Sure.
I know merchandise is something that's become popular. Patreon has kind of grown and explode. And
the biggest way for me is music licensing and composing, like scoring films and stuff like that. The majority of what I've made in my lifetime, my career, has come from that, from either my music getting licensed for TV shows or for getting hired onto a film. And when it comes down to it, my albums that I put out, I love them, and they absolutely represent me as an artist and what I'm trying to, put out there in the world as what David Rosen music is. But when it comes down to it, they are kind of a commercial for me. Hire me to compose for your film or for your jingle for your podcast or your commercial or whatever it is. And they're examples of what I can do. So that way people will hire me. I don't really care if they buy the CD, although people, if you're listening, buy my CD.
Support your local artists.
There you go.
So music creation, content creation. Nowadays, I experience this with the podcast. Right now, you do it for the feel good, for the fun, for the networking.
Yeah, well, piecing it together, definitely. And also Bird Road with my best friend, who he used to live here in Vegas, and we did all kinds of different crazy projects here back in the earlier 2000s and stuff when you were just a kid. But he moved to Florida, and we wanted to try to come up with some kind of project to still do together. And so we had talked about doing a podcast forever, and then just finally got around to it, which I think is the impetus of a lot of podcasts. We wanted to do something forever, and then we finally got to it,
Yeah, that's who Mitch and Dr. Kev are with tipping the odds Las Vegas.
Yeah.
They've been doing theirs for like 8 years, and it's 8-9 years in Vegas, and it's not necessarily always about Vegas, but they live in separate locations.
Yeah.
And it's evolved from Vegas, and then after about 8 years, you're like, all right, I don't know if me and you can continue talking about this. So it kind of evolved into like politics and culture and things like that. What is the topic of your podcast with your best friend?
So that one, Bird Road, is politics, culture, really kind of anything goes. I mean, we used to do a lot of like skits on it and stuff like that too, although we haven't been doing that lately. He's been busy. I mean, we've both been busy producing these other podcasts, and so we just kind of now just use it as an opportunity to catch up and just talk about the stuff happening in the world and, you know, all that stuff. We're both big lefties, so we, you know, we lean into a lot of that kind of stuff, but also ended up talking about more entertainment things and just, you know, everything that's going on. And yeah, and then it kind of provides a place for us to catch up with one another.
There's a shift that I've noticed more specifically with podcasting is that a lot of friends now, they meet up and they record their conversations just about, you know, anything culturally relevant or whatever, and then post it. Whereas like a lot of these like backdoor conversations with friends kind of become diminished because I think there's something about talking over a mic and understanding that other people are listening,
right?
That it almost exudes a little bit more confidence in what you're saying. And also it makes it a little bit more of like a clear picture of what you want to articulate.
That's almost in a strange way, like the positive alter ego of social media, like where everybody just becomes awful you know, when talking to each other over social media. But if you put two mics between each other, like maybe you actually like sound like you know what the hell you're talking about for a little bit.
Yeah, I actually one of my neighbors I had met, and I told her that I was doing podcasting. She came upstairs and I was showing their podcasting equipment, and I was like, you know what, just here, let's put the headphones on. And we ended up having a conversation for like an hour and a half. Didn't record it, but she was like, you know, it was very strange that since I had the headphones on, I felt like I was able to articulate myself a little more and kind of come out of my comfort bubble. She's like, I can't specifically pinpoint why that is, but just being able to hear yourself, and I guess not just that strange voice in your head that you talk to constantly, and having someone else hear that,
absolutely,
it makes you feel a little bit more confident in your feelings.
I think that point kind of speaks also to the podcast bug of like once you start one podcast, you want to start another and another. And I mean, I'm not going to go into them right now, but I definitely have ideas for other podcasts I would love to do. And then I've had, you know, obviously I'm been hired to produce these two podcasts, Awesome Movie Year and All Rice No Beans, but I've had other potential projects that I've discussed with people before. But you know, it's like everybody has an idea for something they want to talk about, and it really it's fun, and it's something where you can like kind of do something you didn't really expect of yourself.
Yeah, it's a complete opposite pitch to what social media has turned into. You know, you said it's negative. It's because everyone's conversation and content is cut up into 6 to 30-second bits.
Sure.
So you can never really fully understand what they're talking about.
Right.
The big example of that is the media taking Bernie Sanders out of context all the time. But then when you see him go on Joe Rogan and talk for, I think it was an hour and a half, even a lot of conservatives were like, you know, I don't support him, but he makes a lot more sense, and he's not just the crazy guy that's like, we're taking everyone's money.
Right. And that's all we could kind of, you know, ask for is for people to like listen for a minute, you know?
Yeah. Everyone's attention span is actually a lot longer than you think.
Right. Hopefully,
yeah. 10 years from now, ADD is going to be reclassified into something that's your attention is too long. Deficit disorder.
Right. Yeah.
The elongation of attention disorder or something like that. It's, and there's also a moment too that when you do long form conversation podcasts, this is something I resonated with, is once you get to about like the 30-minute mark or 40-minute mark and you start opening up to people, and we'll probably hit this mark in about 20 minutes, you feel like whoever's at the opposite end you've known for a while, just because they have your full attention. Yeah. And you know, they're not in their phone buried, so you get some sort of like social cue, or like, oh, they're not paying attention to me, they don't like me, and they're just like, I'm addicted to my phone, so I can't pay attention to you fully.
Well, we're best friends right now. So.
Right? That's what I'm saying. You gave me a piecing it together face mask.
I sure did. Yeah.
See if for those that are on YouTube and are watching, I'm holding it up to the screen. Beautiful. You'll see me. I'll take some pictures with it and everything. And if you are listening on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, you assholes.
There you go.
So tough. So tough. And that was one of the things that when I went into creating content, I was like, God, I'm gonna have to go through this whole process of begging for subscribers and asking for people to follow you and spending all this time on social media. And I absolutely hate Instagram, even though I use it. I just like, I find so much more solace in Twitter and being able to articulate my thoughts. And this is probably why I went to podcasting, where it's like the algorithm that's built into Instagram and Facebook, it's almost like you have to either prostitute yourself by putting more skin on there that feeds into the algorithm.
Right.
So it's like it feeds into your narcissism, or you have to pay to put in front, which also therefore feeds into your narcissism again. Whereas Twitter, you can like opt out of the algorithm and you can just have latest tweets, which is something that I do.
Right. That's smart. But, it's funny. I was just thinking the other day, if I was ever going to stop piecing it together, I don't think I'd actually stop it. I think I'd keep doing it. I would just stop promoting it in any meaningful way. Like I just wouldn't do the Twitter anymore. I wouldn't do the Facebook anymore. And I would just still record conversations in the exact same way that I do the podcast.
Yeah. Once you get to a certain peak of podcasting, you see that a lot of these artists or producers, they don't even promote it anymore because it's just like it's embedded into everyone's everyday schedule. It's like the same as like I wake up and I'm like, did Joe Rogan post something? Did Tim Ferriss post something? Did the Weinstein brothers post something? And then you kind of like go on with your day because it's so easy to include that into your everyday schedule because it's not something that's visually constructed like Netflix, where you're just like, all right, I have to have my ears give attention to it, and also my eyes need to be fixated on it as well.
Right. How do you feel as far as a podcaster, as doing the video component of this show? Like, do you feel like that, I don't know, is like a pain in the ass, or
So going into this 5 months ago, I knew nothing about AV. I was literally a monkey. I literally watched reviews on the Rodecaster for probably like a month trying to figure out what the fuck it was. And there's literally like 10 buttons. Well, there's a few buttons, but in the back, there's like, it's very simplified. It just like didn't ring a bell to me.
Yeah.
And then with doing the video, it's something I always wanted to do, but I wanted to see if the downloads were there first before I'm like, all right, I'm going to go spend $1,500 on, some cameras and try to figure that out. And then going into Premiere Pro, which is that what you use?
I actually use Vegas. I stumbled upon a free copy of Vegas years ago and then was able to upgrade to the newest version for like $99.
I never even heard of that.
Yeah, it was Sony was the one who put that out, but then it was bought by a company called Magix, but that's just nerd stuff.
And then trying to figure out Premiere Pro took me probably a few weeks and I'm still figuring it out. So I was like, all right, now this is more complicated, more time consuming. But the cool thing about long form is I don't edit anything. So it's like I don't have to go back and spend hours chopping and cutting and ands and uhs.
I do edit piecing it together, and it is time consuming. That's part of the reason why I don't have a video component, because I'm like, I just don't even see how that would work.
The only thing I do is I'll rewatch it, because when you do the multicam feature, you have to cut back and forth between it. But I already have to re-listen because I put timestamps because they're so long. Some people like to use that. So it was easy to add it into what I'm already doing.
Right.
And I've kind of enjoyed, I wasn't really a big visual podcast watcher, but I've kind of slowly turned into that. I don't know if that's because that I'm listening to more podcasts now. I'm like, I want to see what they look like. I like to see the body language and the social cues that go on with it. But I think nowadays it's like almost required if you want to make it onto a larger scale, because now they want to associate your identity with a picture. And I saw a lot of, it was like a long-standing trend that's going on with it. So
note to self: start filming, piecing it together.
Yeah, you film it. It's fun, I have to say. Going back and watching it, it's like you're making a video journal of yourself as well, as long as with these guys. So you get to see yourself progress. It's just like now I go back 5 months ago to my first podcast and I'm just like, that was awful. And just like 5 months from now, I'm going to look back and be like, oh my God, that was awful. I'm going to need to bring David back just to redo that entire conversation.
It happens, man. That's that. We all start out there.
Yeah. You started piecing together in what, 2 years ago, I think is what I saw.
3 years ago. Yeah.
What are the biggest stages of growth that you've seen from the podcast?
So I do think that now I'm starting to get more people who are actually asking to be a guest on the show, which is really cool. And so that, as well as just the numbers continuing to grow, viewers and all that stuff. And it's a hard thing to track because of, the way that the podcast industry is, kind of fractured, and, it's people listening in various different places and trying to, interact with the people who listen to the show. So it's definitely a difficult thing to really track that growth of it. But I always just kind of feel like as long as it's continuing to do what it did or better, we're on a right track.
Yeah, I know. Just 2 years ago, the mixer that I used didn't even exist. And a lot of people have said this has made it so much more simplistic as far as the different wirings and amps and different things that you had to use. And I'm sure even 5 years ago, it was freaking super difficult to do.
Oh, yeah. And it's a weird industry, too. Like, I was just saying about, like, the fracturedness of it. Like, just the fact that, like, and this is just behind-the-scenes crap that people probably don't care about, but the way that it runs off of RSS feeds and stuff like that, like, that stuff is just all so weird and, like, archaic and cumbersome. It's an odd industry, but, it allows for something to like go out there and be picked up in a number of ways, which is great because, you can't rely on people for sure using Apple Podcasts or for sure using Spotify. And so it really opens it up for a bigger audience.
I've noticed too that there's no real specific way to calculate the downloads. I know you get a number, but I've listed my RSS feed to a few tracking directories, and all three of them are always off in numbers. Right. So it's like I don't really know what the listenership is. It's like it's really just like the wild, wild west.
It is, which is crazy because podcasts have been around for like 30 something years. Really, I mean, they only got popularized in the last 10, but they've been around forever. And the fact that it hasn't, gotten more, clear how to see any of that is. It's a weird thing.
It's a pain in the ass. Yeah. Just before this, Buzzsprout said that this show hit 5,000 downloads, but then on like thank you. It's been a fun ride. But then one of the other ones says like 4850, and then one of the other trackers says like 51 something. I'm like, dude, I don't even know. I'm just gonna roll with you guys.
Celebrate
I guess
multiple times.
Yeah. I'll have to get multiple cakes just to celebrate.
Absolutely.
So tell me about these other podcasts and the shirt that you're wearing, which is All Points West Podcasting Network, because I've seen a few trends as far as podcasting networks, which is kind of like how I view it as like the new kind of radio establishment where you're just grouping multiple shows together. But yeah, I'd like to hear your knowledge from it as you were running it.
Yeah, well, All Points West really is Q's kind of brainchild. My buddy Q, he's the one that put it together, and the idea initially was for us to, put together a bunch of shows ourselves, and then also to hopefully get hired to produce other people's shows and offer them as a possibility of becoming part of the All Points West network to continue to grow our grouping of shows. Right now, we really are in a great place. We have a bunch of great shows. His wife runs one that's doing really well called Entre Dos, which is about raising bilingual children. So that's like totally different end of the spectrum from anything we're doing. And then, Awesome Movie Year is one that I produce, which is hosted by Josh Bell, who's a film critic here in Las Vegas, and Jason Harris, who's a stand-up comedian here in Vegas, also a filmmaker. And I also appear on mic here and there on Awesome Movie Year, but mainly I'm behind the scenes, recording, editing, producing, all that kind of stuff. And then All Rice No Beans, which is hosted by Stephanie, who is the manager of Lindo Michoacan, the Mexican.
So good.
So good. That restaurant's awesome. And unfortunately, All Rice No Beans is currently on a little bit of a hiatus because of everything going on right now. And it's a lot to handle running a restaurant during these times. But I can totally understand, though. And we will hopefully be back a little later this year, getting right back into the new episodes. And also, we have another podcast that's in the work before all this shutdown happens. So hoping to get that one back up and running, too, a little later this year.
That's awesome. So as far as the back end of All Points West, do you help them with... You said production. Do you help them with marketing and other things like that, listings?
Yeah. Basically everything that goes into running a podcast other than being the people on mic talking, and anything else that they need help with, we help with it. As of this point, Q does the shows that he produces. I do the shows that I produce. But, of course, as we continue to grow and do more, we'll both pick up on each other's shows and all that stuff, and each other's clients that come on board. But yeah, it's pretty much from beginning to end, like helping to plan the show, then actually setting up the show, the website, the feed, all that kind of stuff, the social media, and then just the day-to-day, recording, editing, and posting.
I'm sure too that down the road, once the shows attract a larger audience, that it's easier for ad networks and different revenue streams to just talk to you because you have a connection to all of these different ones, than it is to individually hit up the host of all these different shows.
Exactly. I think that's like in the long run, that's a big part of the strategy, is to be able to offer all these, great shows that are, and especially the fact that we have such a wide ranging list of shows, with Bird Road being, politics and culture, and All Rice No Beans being restaurants, and Piecing It Together, an Awesome Movie Year being movies. And so it's just like, a lot of great different kinds of shows to advertise on.
Yeah, it's cool that all of them are out of Vegas too as well. Yeah. That's something that I'd learned when I first started the podcast. I looked into Vegas podcasts and I found about like 15 of them. And that's when I came onto yours. But as I dive deeper into the Vegas podcasting experience and quotes, now I've found about like 50 or 60 to 70 different shows. I'm just like, Jesus, it literally never ends.
There's podcasts out there. I do find though, and I'm hoping like once things can go back to some kind of normal, that there'll be more, live shows and meetups and things like that for podcasters as this industry continues growing, because you don't really hear from a lot of Las Vegas podcasters. And I know there was one guy who was setting up meetups for a while, and it's hard to get podcasters to like come out and actually promote what they're doing. And we had done one live Piecing It Together before the shutdown, and it went pretty well. I was over at the Sin City Horror Fest at the Palms, and I really was looking forward to doing more of those, just getting in front of a crowd, setting up the mics, and doing what we do. And so I'm hoping that we'll be able to get that back together once things go back to normal, and then bring other podcasters on board, almost like a concert, but of podcasters.
What was that live experience like, having an actual crowd in front of you? Because obviously it's just me and you. We get to have an authentic conversation, but we don't have to speak as loud. We don't have to necessarily emphasize on different things and being distracted by all the people. Yeah. So how was that experience?
It was cool. I would have liked a bigger crowd, of course, but it was our first one doing one like that. And so we had some people out there, and I was happy to see that. And for me personally, it didn't really matter having the crowd. I'm sure some people would, be anxiety inducing, but I have a long history of doing, random, and we don't need to go into it too deeply, but just ridiculous stuff on stage. And so I'm pretty comfortable in front of a crowd. So that was cool. That experience helped me there.
Yeah. I also hope to do more live shows. I actually did one at the Artisan.
Nice.
Where it was like a music collective that was thrown by House of Art, who was one of my guests. And I set up in the lobby, and I got to interview all of the artists and different music composers and players and authors that were there on like their way out. So that was cool, little 5-minute ones. But I was like, man, this is very enthusing. Like, I had so much energy just rushing through me just to get to know people. And it's obviously too a huge marketing tactic as well.
Sure.
Like me and you here, I get to market to you. We can post back and forth once the episode goes live. But there you're meeting 10 to 20 different people, and you're in front of people as well. Yeah. So there's that intimate, personal relationship building as well. Yeah,
I miss going to film festivals. That was like a big thing for me with my music, with being able to promote my new music videos from my albums, and to introduce myself to filmmakers for possible gigs and stuff like that. And so just being able to get out in front of people, it's something. Unfortunately, if you're an introvert, it is part of like, being, in any of these kinds of industries.
I didn't know that at music or at film festivals, there's a section for music videos. Yeah,
a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of film festivals do have music video components nowadays. And a lot of my videos have done quite well. I've been really lucky. I've submitted videos to festivals all over the world, and they've gotten into dozens of them and won a few awards here and there. And so that's been really exciting.
Yeah, right before you came in, I was watching a few of them. There had to be probably 20 or 25 different music videos.
I think there's like 12 or 14 or something.
Okay, you know, I'm hyping it up. There's actually 25 guys. Don't listen to him.
He's right.
The cool thing that I noticed about them is it was about like 50-50 between the music videos shot in reality with real people, real actors, and then the other 50 was like graphically computer integrated, which was cool.
Yeah,
because it kind of shows off your skills in a sense.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I've been lucky enough to collaborate with a lot of really talented people on those. And like, you know, obviously music is my thing. And a few of those videos I made myself, like the actual video component of them, using like public domain footage and stock footage, and then like all kinds of crazy effects and whatever in my video software. But the other ones are directed by really, really talented directors. A lot of the times they are filmmakers who I, was previously hired to, score their film. And then along the process of just chatting and talking and all that, it's like, hey, you want to make a music video for me? And, one thing leads to another. But, yeah, I've worked with a lot of really talented people, and that mix of doing animated ones and real life, actual produced acting ones, I think just keeps it fresh. And the music video is just such a great art form because it's like, it's 3-4 minutes or whatever. Some of them a little longer, and you get to tell some kind of unique story. It could be abstract. It can be, it could just be really weird, or it could be actually like a really cool narrative story just told in a little condensed amount of time, and it opens up for some really cool story ideas.
I don't know if I've just been kind of oblivious to music videos, but I felt like over the last 5 to 10 years, music videos kind of died off a little bit.
Oh, for sure.
And now I've been seeing them pop up more and more, especially over this year, over 2020.
I think they've always been there. It's just, 20 years or however long ago it was that MTV died off, and then VH1, and it just kind of became where they exist, but where exactly are you going to see a music video, And so now that we're all, glued to our YouTube and all that kind of stuff, maybe they pop up a little bit more.
Yes, I guess I saw that the average screen time, I was doing this for research the other day, is 3 hours for an American on average, which I thought was kind of low, to be honest.
Yeah.
I was like, maybe that's also not including the MacBook, the desktop, but if you include actual screen time.
Yeah.
There's a famous Silicon Valley guy that I follow on Twitter. His name's Balaji. Mm-hmm. He has I think 500,000 followers, and he put up a poll, and it was like, do you spend more time on average in the physical world or staring at a screen? And it was 60-something% was staring at a screen.
I believe it, man. I hate it, but I totally believe it, and I am guilty.
Yeah, there's no better feeling though than on Sunday when Apple sends you that update, and it's like your screen time is down 20% for the week. You're like, yes, I'm doing something with my life, even though it's you've gone down from 4 hours to 3 hours.
Yeah, you were working that whole time, right? That was important work.
I've on Sunday this week, I think my screen time was under 2 hours, and I was like, wow, that is amazing. But then I realized I'm spending most of it on my desktop,
nice,
staring at a different form of screen.
Damn thing.
Yeah, or watching your music videos.
Hey, that's a good use of time.
It was very, very, very good. So you said some of the music videos won awards. Which ones specifically won awards, and which awards did they win?
So, I probably will forget which awards specifically they won. I mean,
there's too many, guys. There's too many.
It's just various film festivals. I do know, actually, off the top of my head, Back Into the Dark, which is a really, really cool stop motion animated video from my album Head Like Fire, which is my third album. That video won at the Laughlin International Film Festival, won Best Music Video. And I know Artificial, which is a story. It's a filmed, like a little mini movie kind of music video, is directed by this guy, Ben Yonker, who I've worked with on a bunch of films. And it's based off of a story idea I came up with that I actually wrote, and really, really proud of that one. And that won a few different awards. It won Gold Telly, and it won I'm drawing a blank on some of the others, but very.
There's too many guys.
Yeah, it's not the number so much as remembering which award goes to which video. It's kind of the harder thing, but but no, very, very proud of those two. And also I have put out a few virtual reality music videos, which those have done really well as well. The first of those, An Unseen Sky, that won here at the VR Fest here in Las Vegas. It won Best Animated VR Music Video. And then Palindrome 360, which is from my last album, A Different Kind of Dream. That one was named one of the best virtual reality music videos by Forbes, which was a really exciting honor. Yeah, I was so proud of that. And so, yeah, I mean, that's a really fun world to play in, the whole virtual reality thing. And I'm not sure going forward how that's going to play out, because I used to do these events where I would set up either at record store day or before a concert or a film festival or something, where I would set up in the lobby and show people the VR video and put my headset on their face. And then the next person comes and I put that same headset on their face, and then on the next person's face. And yeah, I don't know how that's going to work going forward.
Yeah, but change.
I would love, though, to make another one of these days, and we'll figure out how exactly to promote that.
That's funny. So I had an interesting thought while you're talking about music videos, is that as we were talking about traditional music videos, I'd say probably 99% of them that were made were from songs that had lyrics.
Sure.
None of your songs have lyrics.
Right.
So I think there is probably a little bit more of a creative process as it comes to creating the music video, because you have so much more. There's so much more open territory to create, because that's something I like about electronic music, is that the ones with no words is open interpretation.
Sure.
So everyone experiences it in a different way, but they experience everything together.
Absolutely.
So what's that creative process like for creating a music video for a song that obviously you compose but has no lyrics?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of different ways that can happen, and it's hard to pinpoint any particular one. Sometimes it's just an idea or a scene that kind of pops in my head, and I just kind of go from there. Sometimes it's not my idea at all. It's whoever I'm collaborating with, who they had a story idea that, maybe it was a film idea that they wanted to eventually make one day. And then they heard my song. We're like, oh, this would go together really well with this, So I can't speak to where they came up with the idea or why they thought my song would be the right place to use that idea. But yeah, I mean, there's just so many different ways, and it really comes down to the feeling of the song, which, ties in really well with scoring a film, because when I'm working on scoring, I watch the film and I try to figure out exactly what this filmmaker is trying to express with what's happening on screen, and then kind of take it from there. This basically comes from the same place. It's the opposite, though. I listen to the music and I picture, well, what kind of scene might this, have been used as the score for? And that's kind of where, for the ones that I came up with the idea, for example, Artificial, which is about a woman who she's an engineer, and she creates this artificial companion to kind of be her boyfriend, sort of, but then she meets a real man and leaves him for the other guy. And it's kind of this heartbreaking story. And I had this story idea just kind of pop in my head. I have no idea where do any ideas come from, but I had it come into my head, and I started working on the music for the idea, not knowing if I would ever be able to turn it into a video. But, I wrote it out and talked to Ben about it, and he brought this thing to life in a way that it was very similar to what I was picturing, and I'm so proud of that. But then on the other end of the spectrum, the one I mentioned earlier, Back into the Dark, that's this visual artist, B. Landers, that made that stop motion animation video, and I've always wanted a stop motion animation video. I love that style. It's just so cool. And she was taking a class. She's a friend of a friend, actually, who I met through Ben, just so happens to be. And she posted this little 10-second things she did for class that was stop motion. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. I've always wanted to have a stop motion video. And she was like, hey, maybe we should do something, and that's just how that worked out. And I completely gave her full, whatever she wants to do.
Full freedom.
Yeah, total freedom on that. And she just came back with the coolest thing ever. So that's awesome. And, And then also, like another recent one, this video Butterfly was made by a visual artist here in Las Vegas, Tobias Steiner, who's a really talented computer artist. He works on, film and commercials and stuff like that, doing CGI. And he had an idea that he was working on and needed music for. So he kind of came to me, and I made the song as if I was scoring something, but I knew, like, going into it, that was going to be a song and a music video, not a score for a film. And so I kind of approached it as like a hybrid of that. And so that just turned into something awesome there too. And that was like totally his idea, but I kind of went in on top of it. And speaking of Tobias, he just created my next music videos for a track called Multiply. That's going to be on my new album.
Oh, you guys heard it here first.
There you go.
So it's a perfect interlude into your next album.
Sure.
So let's talk about it. What's the album called? What's it about? And what's its meaning in the world of David Rosen?
Sure. Well, it is actually called David Rosen. It's my first self-titled album.
Boom.
There you go. And it is coming out on October 4th, which is my 40th birthday. And
congrats.
so I think it really represents, my music and what it is that I do. I people who know me, my friends, they joke about how I love everything that I make, like too much, but I truly do think this is my best album. Like, I'm very serious when I say that. I love it. And it really feels like a culmination of everything else I've done, which it's so perfect that I didn't name one of my other albums, David Rosen. This is the one to have that title, which is honestly like the most pretentious thing in the world when an artist names not their first album self-titled, but like their sixth album self-titled, but hey, whatever. But yeah, so I'm very excited about it. My first 3 albums were all 16 songs, and so this is back to that. It's another 16 songs. Between that, I've released a couple of different kinds of things. I had a different kind of dream. My 4th album was 10 tracks. It was meant to kick off a new kind of phase in my career, which didn't quite work out, partially because I got so busy with podcasting, but also because it turns out that unless you're, some major, billion fan artist, people just want you to put out an album every few years. And yeah, if you're Jay-Z, you could put out a little 4-song thing just in the middle of nowhere, put out an 8-song thing in the middle of nowhere, put out a single, put out of this, put out of that, which was kind of my idea for a little while there. But people are like, oh yeah, but when's the album coming? So that didn't work out.
You have to stay a little relevant.
Yeah, exactly. You got to put something out and just push the hell out of it for like a year or two, So that's what I'm doing with this one, like I used to. But yeah, I'm really excited about this one. I do have some music video ideas I'm hoping to put out. Obviously, we'll lead it off with this Multiply video, which is a really cool abstract computer generated video. And I have a few ideas in mind that I'm hoping to collaborate with some people on for some of the other videos and just continue from there. And this album, as far as like, what makes it different, I could have finished and put this out a couple of months ago. It really did start as my pandemic album. You know what I mean? It was my quarantine album. And I didn't want to do one of those though. So many artists are putting out albums during quarantine, and I'm the kind of guy, like I tend to work fast. Like when I start on a song, unless I'm being like a real perfectionist about it, like I can start the song, revision 1, revision 2, revision 3, it's done, and I toyed with the idea of, maybe I'll put out a little EP every week or something like that. I'm stuck at home. What the hell else am I going to do, And first of all, I didn't want to do that because I didn't want it to get lumped. Like, I didn't want that to be its identity, like, this is Dave made an album during quarantine. That's what this is. It's not a real album, so I didn't want that to happen. I was really enjoying the tracks that I was making too much. But also what happened is I started working so crazily fast that it actually started on April 1st. Like that was like 2 weeks into
2 weeks into it. Yeah.
Yeah. It started April 1st. I ended up starting in 1 week, 15 new tracks.
Oh, it's like a little ADD right there.
It was insane. I was just sitting there I was making like 4 or 5 a day practically. And then I had all these other songs that I had like started on, but like kind of just let slip, a couple years ago. And I started loading those back up and revising them into like all new things, just using like, just the basics of the tracks and just building them into new things. And so before I knew it, like a month later, I already had like 33 new songs.
Oh my God.
And so it just kept going and going. And right now I think I'm sitting around 40, 41. So I was like, yeah, I can't just put out, a little weird throwaway quarantine thing. Like I need to like actually be working on my next couple of albums right now. And so right now I kind of have this like kind of game plan of this album's going to come out October 4th. Then sometime early next year will be another full length 16 song album with some of these other songs. And then I also am planning on like a collection of like, I guess you'd call it like B-sides and rarities kind of thing, like various stuff that was either released as singles or never released or like just put up on like my Reverb Nation back in the day. And I'm going to go back and like remaster it all and like make sure it's all like up to snuff for like an actual release. But it's going to be like a collection of that kind of stuff. And so between those three, it's basically going to be like 3 more albums over the next 2 or 3 years is how I'm planning on like kind of spacing it out, and it gives me time to like put it all together, but where I'm not like, oh, I haven't made an album in a while. What am I going to do? I got to scramble now. No, I'm actually going to have like all this stuff that I could just finish up and put out.
You can have it preloaded.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm excited about these next couple of years, and it's great. Like, it sucks that we're stuck at home and it sucks what's going on. But, with podcasting taking up, so much of my time lately, it's like, it's nice that I had a little bit of time to like really rededicate myself to music and be able to like dig back into that.
That's awesome. Are these albums still following along the same lines of the was it experimental, instrumental, like electronic vibes?
Sure. I definitely feel like they are growing a little bit. They're like kind of incorporating more of my film scoring work into the sounds that I'm working with. And like, for people who don't know my music, it is like on the level it's electronic music, but I'm also very like inspired by a lot of alternative stuff. My favorite band is The Cure, and they like, 90s era The Cure is a huge influence on my music. Depeche Mode, 9 Inch Nails, like a lot of that kind of stuff. So, I wouldn't want people to go seek me out and expect it to be EDM or something like that, even though there's some upbeat tracks on the new album. But it definitely like brings in a lot of those kind of influences, as well as, like I said, film score stuff. So you're really getting like a wide range of sounds mixed in there.
You're growing. Yeah, your 6th album, you'd think put out probably about 40 or 50 tracks already. Yeah. So it evolves over time. Yeah. And we've been so we started off this podcast, we started in the beginning and we went to the end. Now we've been kind of working reverse order. So we'll continue the Benjamin Button track that we're going and start
I could use that.
Start at the beginning of your music career. How old were you when you first released your first track, and what was the inspiration behind it?
So my career's kind of gone in a few different phases. My first like David Rosen album came out in 2013. It's called Echoes in the Dark. And at that point I had already done a lot of stuff. I just didn't really feel ready to put out an album with my name on it. And it was like, this is what my music is, So that first album, though, I'm very proud of it still to this day. And it definitely has all these kinds of influences that I'm talking about here. Before that, though, I did start like probably back in 1997 is when I first really started like getting into the idea of like maybe I could make music. And I graduated high school in 98, if you're doing the math.
That's what I was trying to do math.
And I was really influenced by a lot of like industrial artists like Ministry and Front 242 and 9 Inch Nails and stuff like that. These people who made music, predominantly with computers and machines and stuff like that. And so I figured maybe I can, get a computer, get some software, get a keyboard and figure out how to do that. And it did not work at first. It was like I just did not have the abilities to make anything like that. But I did make some pretty cool rap beats. And so I took a big detour producing rappers. And then I don't know how deep you looked into what I do, but I also had a whole lot of comedy rap stuff here in Las Vegas throughout the early 2000s.
Comedy rap? I don't even know what that is. What is that?
You don't want to know what that is. So it's moving on. But yeah, back when I was in UNLV, that was a big part of the direction of what my career took, and producing rappers and doing the comedy rap stuff. And then all along, though, film was my major goal, though. Like I really could see myself doing music for film. And so that's what I was kind of trying to build up my abilities, and as well as networking, so I could actually get the opportunities to do it. And I think everything kind of, came along at the right time. Like I finally got a chance to score a film, I think in 2005, maybe somewhere around there, 2004, 2005. And from there, just kept, working at it. And it was right around that first album, though, in 2013, when things really picked up. And that's when I started working on, dozens and dozens of films and commercials and everything.
Yeah, so that's when the career kind of took off a little bit. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to get that entrance point into whatever industry that you're going.
Absolutely, yeah. But it's a matter of the abilities, as well as the connections, as well as a lot of luck.
Yeah, and persistence as well.
Yeah,
it's something I see as a theme towards a lot of people that I have on the show that eventually break in, or not even on the show, just people in general. So sometimes it takes 2 years, depending on the people that you know. Sometimes it takes 13 years.
It's so true.
There's always the break in at some point. You just have to stay committed to it.
Yep.
So it's interesting. And I didn't know that you went to UNLV, actually. Did you study film there?
I didn't study anything. I went for 7 years. I did not graduate, and
oh boy,
I just went to UNLV because that's what you do after high school. So
that's funny. That's so true. It took me 5.5 years. So I have one of my close friends just is graduating this semester, and he's like 8 years. I know a lot of people who've been on that 5 to 7 year track.
I only stopped going because I didn't have time for it anymore. But yeah, I jumped around majors. Funny story, I was actually a film critic at UNLV TV, and they had like an actual show that was like televised on Cox Cable on the public access or whatever it is. And I did that for 2 semesters, and then stopped going to UNLV, and I just didn't tell them. And I kept being their critic for like another 3 semesters. So that was fun. I had a lot of fun doing that. And I also wrote for the Rebel Yell back then, which I guess it's not called that anymore. But I was definitely all around UNLV for those years.
RIPs to the Rebel. I don't know what they're going to turn it into next.
Yeah, or if colleges will still be a thing. Who knows?
Something I've been telling people is now I think any class that's over 75 students, there's an option to have remote viewership. It's going to kill all of the campus organizations, Greek life, nonprofits, even just the educational ones as well. It's like if no one's on campus.
Yeah, that would be so crazy. I had an organization actually at UNLV, the UNLV Polar Bear Club.
Polar Bear?
Yes, which was actually named after my comedy rap stuff. Again, let's not talk about that. But the Polar Bear Club was my way of getting around the not being allowed to promote bands on campus because I was promoting my own stuff. I was also getting hired. I actually worked for Sony Music for a few years, and so I was promoting like major label bands, and then I was also working with various street teams where I would promote local bands and touring bands and all that stuff. So a whole lot of music promotion stuff was also a part of my whole career trajectory, and so the Polar Bear Club was just my way of getting in and being able to do it on campus. So
why Polar Bear?
Let's not go.
I'm gonna find that's probably his comedy rap name.
Yeah.
Yes, I figured it out. Now I'm gonna have to search the internet even more, bring me back under that alias.
There you go.
Man, well, this has been it's been an incredible talk for over an hour. I feel like I'm sure there's a lot of topics that we didn't cover. But
sure,
we'll have to bring you back.
Let's do it
for that. Save everyone's ears, but. I always ask 2 of the same questions at the end. So the first question is, the year's 2030. What does the landscape of Piecing It Together and music by Dave Rosen look like?
Okay, 2030. Let's go with music by David Rosen first. Okay. Hopefully at that point, I have just continued doing what I've been doing. Actually, I just want to continue to put out albums and just be as proud of the work that I'm putting out. You know, that just, it really makes me happy to be able to put something out and truly enjoy it. Like, I listen to my own music a lot, you know what I mean? And I want to be able to do that. And I want to continue composing for films and hopefully do some more films that, you know, are able to play in a theater if that's a thing, you know? So.
I made a tweet right at the beginning of the pandemic that I was like, 20 years into the future, all the kids are going to look at us like we're crazy that we used to go and watch movies together in one location.
That's why I hate kids.
And how about your movie career? What do you see in the 10-year trajectory?
Yeah, so piecing it together, you know what? Like I said earlier, like half jokingly, like, even if I was to stop actively promoting my podcast, I really can't picture myself wanting to stop doing it because, like I said, as much as I wish I was watching movies in the theater, I'm still watching all these new movies that come out. I'm digging into older, you know, classics and stuff since I'm stuck at home. And when I watch a movie, the best way to really unpack it and dig into it is to talk about it with somebody. And so for somebody like me who just loves to watch a lot of movies, having a podcast is just so much fun, you know? And it's like you can do two things after you finish watching. Well, you can do three things. The third thing is just go on with your day and go. I don't know what the hell normal people do, but you can do two things. You can go down a rabbit hole on your phone, like reading analysis and message boards and all that kind of stuff, and that's fun and all, but it's like, it's not productive, you know? Or you can set up two mics and talk to somebody about the movie and what you thought about it, what it made you feel, and, you know, and that's why podcasting is awesome.
It's a beautiful landscape. Beautiful. And last question is, what does Las Vegas mean to you?
I love Las Vegas. Las Vegas means to me, this is a hard thing to kind of express, but one of the things I love about Las Vegas, look, I love traveling as well. And I love going to, like, you know, a city with just all this rich history and all that kind of stuff.